Been told to talk about some of the examples or questions from the Middle Temple application form and just talk about my general response to those questions and how I would advise other people to do it. So the first one is, what question would you most like the panel to ask you? And I think that you should really play to your strengths with this kind of question. It depends on what you think that you want to get out of the panel that you couldn't necessarily get out from your written application. So I don't think it really matters whether that's more of a general question that you feel like you prepared well for, or something that you think will inspire a bit of debate between you and the panel and really show you how you can respond to their questions.
Firstly, my top tip is don't fall into the trap of being too general and requesting that the panel ask you a question such as, why do you want to be a barrister? Be specific and ensure that whichever question you request the panel to ask you, it's something that is tailored to yourself and is really another opportunity for the panel to remember you when it comes to sifting out applications and deciding who is deserving among all the applicants of a scholarship. So really take that opportunity, think about your answer, tailor it to yourself, your experiences, your insights, and your aspirations, and ensure that you really use that final opportunity to impress the panel.
Give an example of when you have demonstrated integrity or faced an ethical dilemma. This question is really trying to pull out how you can deal with ethical scenarios. When you're a barrister, you're going to be dealing with ethical scenarios day in and day out. And barristers are bound to a code of conduct, which means that they have to be ethical all the time. So, for example, acting with integrity, being honest, having strong moral principles. This question is really testing whether you have the ability to be that ethical person, to act with honesty, to act with integrity. So just think about any situation, personal, legal, where you've really felt like you've been in an ethical situation. You felt like your honesty is being tested and you felt like you needed to do the right thing. That's what I would really try and focus on here.
I think on these questions, it goes back to, don't be worried if you haven't got legal experience. In my background, I think what they're really looking for here is to show that you are able to address some sort of issue that you've had in terms of ethically or in terms of integrity, and that you're able to manage it effectively. I've had many examples when I worked at Nando's where I was faced with ethical dilemmas and integrity, just as much as where I am currently as a paralegal. And I think the question here is more about how you overcome it. What procedures did you take? Was you did you take the relevant precautions? Did you take a risk? And of course, that's what they're wanting to see. They're wanting to see your logic as to how you answered or how you dealt with that dilemma.
Give an example of a time when you had to overcome adversity or disadvantage.
I think it's okay, first and foremost, I want to say this. I think it's okay to recognise at the start of your answer, whatever your answer may be, that you may not feel, perhaps, that you've suffered a huge amount of adversity or disadvantage compared to how you may perceive other candidates have suffered adversity or disadvantage. And you'll obviously consider the fact that this is really quite a sensitive topic. In my answer, I certainly felt that I hadn't suffered as much adversity or disadvantage as perhaps some candidates had in my cohort. And I openly said that. I didn't want to appear insincere or insensitive. So I made it very clear at the start of my answer that I had felt really quite, perhaps privileged is the wrong word, but safe in my route so far. And I hadn't struggled massively other than my own personal difficulties. And for that reason, I wanted to make that clear at the start. And you may want to do the same. And I think that's absolutely fine to do that at the start of your question to get off on the right foot. Again, I'm going to bang on about this for the next few answers to these questions as well. But I think it's right, as I've said before, to focus on the right answer for you again here. the honest and the real answer. Because once you've found that answer, whatever it may be about, then you can focus on structuring it appropriately. Again, I'd say use the STAR technique: the situation, the task, the action, and result. And really focus on explaining the answer to the question really well, really concisely and coherently within the strict word count that you have. You need to include everything of importance, I think, here, but write it with credence and do it succinctly. Focus on the important parts of what you want to get across to the panel and leave out the less importance, and be brutal with that, I think, is my biggest piece of advice here, because anyone could write probably 1,000 words, if not more, if they've suffered some significant form of adversity or disadvantage, and you only have 200. So think carefully about which 200 words you're going to select and deploy there. And I really can't stress enough how important it is for these type of answers to go with the answer which feels right to you and comfortable to you, and focus in on that. Think long and hard, and once you've worked that out, everything will flow from there.
And the other question is, give an example of when you have overcome adversity or disadvantage. And I think the best way to approach this question is to think of something where you face some kind of difficulty and you can really show that you've achieved a good result from that despite the adversity. So not just something that will really inspire pity in the panel, but more something that might make them think that you've gone against something that was really hard, but that you've really done your best to get something out of that loss that might be even better than what you thought you had before. That was my kind of general approach to it.
What do you think your greatest strength is, which will enable you to succeed at the bar?
Again, I think with the greatest strength question is what I did for all of my the question that it was very much the same last year as well, was to say, okay, if I was in practice, what do I know I will be so good at that all of my clerks, my clients, my instructing solicitors will be so happy with me for doing. And then it's at that point you realise what your strength is. And sometimes it's just keeping your clients in the loop. Maybe it's, you're that barrister that is able to make sure your client's reassured, or you're that barrister who does have amazing advocacy, especially oral advocacy. And it's seeing where your real strengths lie if you were in practice, rather than what is your greatest strength overall. I think there may be a difference between what your strength is as a barrister versus what your strength is as a person.
My advice to this question, again, is to make a list of personal characteristics and strengths, and then consider which particular strength will allow you to give a robust answer in really impressing the panel and illustrating your personal qualities, your ambition, and how serious you are in ultimately going on to have a successful career at the bar.
What is a weakness that you would need to overcome in order to become a good barrister?
I'm going to say it again, but I think candidates need to really focus on the right answer for them here. This career is about integrity and honesty. At the centre point, your independence means that is clearly critical to a successful career at the bar. And you need to remember that when you're giving your answer. This is a question that I find certainly difficult to answer, and did find it difficult to answer at the scholarship stage when I applied. But it's also a very common question, as you will all find out, when you apply for pupillage. And they may just spring it on you in an interview rather than asking you in an application form. And I think Middle Temple have been nice here by asking you on the application form and allowing you to really think about it before you give your answer. So practice this question now, I would say, and think long and hard about what you're going to be putting here. In terms of structure itself, again, I think the STAR method, situation, task, action, result, I'm going to have that imprinted on my brain after I'm finished with this. Again, is critical, with an addition here. And that addition is at the end of your answer, after the result point, I would explain what you're doing or what you're going to do to combat that weakness. The question doesn't ask it, granted, and I appreciate that, but I think it's clear here that they want to hear your thoughts, and they may well indeed ask you at an interview as well, your thoughts on what you have done or what you are doing to overcome that difficulty that you're struggling with. And I think this is a critical point where you can really use evidence to show that you've recognized, first and foremost, that that is indeed a weakness you have. And that already looks great. You're looking inwardly and working on your self-improvement. And that's a big thing at the bar, constantly assessing and thinking, what could I have done better? What can I do better next time? How can I improve this? And how can I improve that? So by doing it now, you're only serving to help yourself in the future. And in terms of that, make sure that you're really honing in and showing them what you're doing to improve in that area specifically. So link it all together with a nice structure. And I don't think you can go far wrong with that question, whatever it is you really struggle with, as long as you really think about what that is before you put pen to paper.
What is a weakness you would need to overcome in order to become a good barrister? I think this question is really just testing whether you can be aware of the weaknesses that you have. I know it might seem a little bit weird talking about a weakness on an application, but recognizing your weak area is the best way you're going to improve it. So we'll just really think about the skill set that you think a barrister needs to possess. Some examples can be motivation, communication, networking skills, confidence. The list is really quite endless. And just really think about those skills and think about one that you perhaps would need to improve or that you think you're perhaps lacking in. Do you not maybe have a lot of confidence in yourself or your abilities at the moment? Do you think you need to improve on your networking skills? Just really be honest with yourself and think about, from this point until next year, what is the one skill you would really, really want to improve on in making that journey towards being a barrister?
Just one thing, and it's a bit of a plug, I'm afraid, Monique, but I'm going to say it anyway. I recently wrote a guide on just my thoughts and tips for pupillage interviews and pupillage applications. I think the exact same things that I've written regarding pupillage tips and hints, things that I wish I'd known before I set out on that search for pupillage, are very much relevant in terms of application, written application techniques and interview techniques to the same thing you will face with your scholarship applications and interviews. So if anyone would like a copy of that, then they're more than welcome to get in touch with me. Just find me on LinkedIn and I can send you over a copy if that's of something that you would be of interest in. So just get in touch with me.
You can add me on LinkedIn, Rich Harrington. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have, whether that's to do with the application or to do with the actual interview. And like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm still surprised in some ways that I was able to obtain my scholarship, but it can be done. And from any of you who aren't, terms from who haven't got any disabilities, for example, or have any disabilities, don't feel like it's impossible to do well and get the scholarship. Like I said, I do have a few and I've managed to do well, and it's nice that someone else puts the trust in for me. Thank you very much.